welcome to Because You're Worth It. And what exactly is because you're worth it? What does that mean? And it's a tagline. It's called a slogan. And it can be many things. But what it is a part of your brand. So the question to you today is, what's yours? How are you using yours? How are you using your tagline? And how is it clipping in? And really, what is it all about? And what does it mean? So, here's what I want to share with you today. And I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Darcy from Sticky Bee. And it's the place to be because I help you make it super simple to brand you. And I help you get connected to your ideal audience. I help you get them sticky, get them stuck, and get them to stay like bees to honey. So, part of that is a tagline. And we know that our audience purchases emotionally. So one of the first things you've got to figure is, what is the emotional connection to a tagline if you're going to create one? Mine is, I help you get them sticky. In other words, that's your customer. Get them stuck and get them to stay. Sticky, stuck, and stay like bees to honey. And in fact, I help you get noticed so your audience has a target to throw their wallet at. So I'm not really talking about me. What I'm talking about is you. And that's what a tagline should be doing. Is not really talking about you, but about your audience. So let's kind of jump into this and play around with it for the next few minutes. So we are subjected to 3,000 messages on a daily basis. And so what does that mean? Well, they can come in our news feed. They can come on the radio, on the television, in the newspaper, in the magazines you read. They can come when you're driving down the road on billboards and signs. So we're really inundated with, quite frankly, a whole bunch of advertisers' messages. So when you're crafting your brand, and it ain't just your logo and your letterhead and your colors, it's a whole bunch about how are you going to rise up above through all of this messaging soup and get noticed. Because of those 3,000 messages a day that we're subjected to, 54 are noticed, but only 4 are remembered. 4. So, are you hanging out in your customer's memory? Well, I hope you are. And a tagline can help you do that. There's a whole bunch of things that go into this recognition soup or branding awareness. And a tagline is part of that. So you actually have kind of a less than a 1% chance of anyone remembering your message. So I spoke last week about how we want to kind of grab hold of our visual message, because that's the first thing that your customer notices, or your audience, or your prospective customer. So what we want to do is reach in and grab their attention, and we want to tap in to their buyer's brain. And we can do that by influencing. And there is a psychology and a series of psychology strategies that you should be employing. And I've often said, it's not just about buy my stuff, buy my stuff. It is about how you are tapping into this psychology in your buyer's brain. So you want to plug in and tap in and influence a purchase. So one of those things is with a tagline. And so you say, well, what the heck is a tagline? And a tagline is a short, punchy, and memorable statement that identifies a brand. Short, punchy, and memorable, or memorable. So when you're putting or crafting your tagline, think about, is it short, is it punchy, and can it tap in to your buyer's brain? So here's some taglines to ponder. A diamond is forever. Now, you got to think about, where have you heard this? And it's been around for a very, very, very long time. So I suspect you've heard it numerous times. And it is actually from De Boers or De Beers, who are the diamond manufacturers in the world, the largest ones. And they actually created the situation that when people get engaged, they seal it with a diamond, because diamonds are forever. Then they found that so many people were getting divorced that it didn't have quite the significance that it did when they originally crafted the message, which I think was in the 50s. So then they created a new message to get young single women to buy their own diamonds, and it all took off again. But a diamond is forever. And one of the biggest comedians around used to say, buy her a diamond. That'll shut her up. So when we think about that, when we think about this one, the happiest place on earth, well, where could that be? And I don't think it will take any of us more than a minute or a second to know that that's Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. Or how about just do it? And we know as soon as we see it, well, that's Nike. And you take the just do it tagline away and you look at just the swoosh, and you know in a second that it's Nike. Remember that we want to catch our audience's attention in the blink of an eye. And the blink of an eye has been measured, and it's 1/3 of a second. So it's like a nanosecond. It's like a split second. So when you can grab attention quickly, that's the first thing. Because if you don't have their attention, you don't have their sale. You can't go through anything else. You can't go through the rest of the process. And this one I think is really funny. The original. If your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist. Now, there's maybe a few of you young folk out there that are too young to know this is Old Spice, the original. If your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist. And it rang supreme for many, many years. Now, I want to give you a little bit of background about what these slogans or taglines or banner comments are all about. Back in the, I think around the 50s is when Elmer Wheeler came on the scene. And he was a newspaper man, and he was going to lose his job because they weren't, sales were kind of going down, and but they had a lot of room in the sales department. So Elmer left writing and went into sales, and he could write great copy to make sales happen, but he would go and check out the restaurants that he was writing for and found that nobody really knew how to sell. And so he was saying, it ain't about the steak. It's about the sizzle. So as you're crafting your tagline, think about what you're selling. And it's not about necessarily the color blue. It's not necessarily that they haven't been tested on animals. Well, that may be important. But you want to look at the like, what is your audience? What is your target customer going to get from the purchase of this product? And can you entice them with the sizzle and not the steak? So when we think about the steak, when we think about how it might smell, that you could, say, cut it with a fork, that you can enjoy the meal. You can, there's just a whole bunch of sizzle one can write about the steak. So your tagline is about the sizzle, and it's not the steak. And we have to also remember, which I think I've already said, but I'm going to repeat myself, that what we have to remember is that we are selling emotion, because people purchase emotionally. So we want to tap in, as I say, to the buyer's brain. But what we're really doing is touching their heart. So while we're tapping into the psychology of how they purchase, what we're really trying to do is grab their heart. Which brings us back to because you're worth it. Now, this was a tagline created, I think, almost 40 years ago for a cosmetic company called L'Oreal. And at the time, L'Oreal was just, I believe, a hair dye product. And its competition was a much smaller, but more established company called Clairol. And Clairol's hair dye was cheaper than L'Oreal. L'Oreal's was initially out of Paris. So when they created this tagline, because you're worth it, they didn't have to say it's more expensive, because it was, and that's not necessarily a feature or a benefit, but because you're worth it, you should be spending more, because you're worth it. Now, some other things that came interesting about this tagline is that it encourages the user, the customer, the female, to be fearless, because you're worth it, to be ambitious, because you're worth it, to believe in your self-worth. Really tons of emotions around this tagline, created in the early 70s by a 23-year-old, if you can believe it. Now, it goes on to really talk about, without separating out, that they're not offering a cookie cutter model. This is for everyone because you're worth it. And it's about taking charge. And L'Oreal is all about a unique vision of the world, a unique organization. Now here we see a lot of very, 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 very young models. But in fact, the research showed that the L'Oreal customer was, quite frankly, all shapes and sizes, was young and older, or maybe divorced and coming back in to take charge in the world. So what they've done recently I believe this is in kind of the last year, is they've gone to a number of the movers, female movers and shakers, and said, talk to us about what does your worth it mean. And worth, of course, is value. And how do you value yourself? How do you value being a female? What has being a female, how is it affected? How do you think it's affected your career? And they approached a number of women to make a little snippet of comment about because you're worth it. And these are incredibly empowering little snippets of kind of where women are standing. So let me just give you a quick little look at this here. So Kate Winslet, what Kate has done is kind of interesting, is that in the throes of her little snippet, she actually took her makeup off and said, you know, we don't need makeup to have self-worth. And just a minute, I just want to move this around a little bit here. Okay, what do we look like on here? Sorry, folks, let me just, is that better? Yeah, maybe I'll just put a snap on that, except I can't put a snap on it. Okay, so we did this. There's Kate Winslet, and she has a nice comment story to make. Jane Fonda is wonderful, and she talks about how she, even though the enormous successes she had, she doubted herself a lot in the process. Viola Davis is absolutely remarkable. Lessons of Self-Worth from Helen Mirren, from Eva Longoria, from Camila Cabello. There are Lessons of Self-Worth by Leah Kabidi, who is from Nigeria and talks about being a young black woman and her ideas of succeeding. And Helen Mirren, of course, is feisty as heck. And these are just all incredibly empowering comments about my self-worth and lessons of self-worth. So here is a simple tagline that has lasted decades and has kind of experienced a number of kind of iterations and can continue to go on through the ages. So the question I'm hoping you're having right now is, well, how the heck do I do a tagline? And I want you to know that taglines are really stories in themselves and part of our vital conversations. As I say, it's about tapping into the brain, but what you're really trying to do is grab the heart. Now, I'm going to be doing a little challenge in the next couple of weeks, and I'm just getting close to kind of putting the finishing touches on it. If you're keen to join me, and it's a free challenge for 5 days, and one of the topics we're going to cover is crafting your tagline, crafting your story tagline. So if you're interested in joining me, put show me in the comments below and I'll make sure you get the info. And really, 5 days to take a look at how all of this stuff kind of comes together and tapping into these emotions so that you can influence your buyer's purchase. So join me, folks. Hope you got a little bit of an inkling about how powerful a tagline can be. And we'll chat soon. Remember, put show me in the comments below. And if you're viewing this on my homepage, Sticky Bee Ideas, give me a like. So take care, folks. Chat soon. Bye for now.